I assume you're pro-life. You accuse them of being okay with murdering babies, and they accuse you of wanting to control women's bodies. Welcome back to the illumilands. My name is Daniel Hurd, and in this video, I'm going to give you an unbiased look at the opinions of pro-choice people, so that you can have more constructive conversations with your pro-choice friends. As a reminder, if you like the video, click the like button, and if you really like the video, subscribe to keep up with my newest videos. If you're watching this, I assume you're pro-life. I also assume that you've got some pro-choice friends who you get in conversations with. I wouldn't be surprised if you also hate the term pro-choice, because from your point of view, it's really just the choice between being allowed to kill a baby and not being allowed to kill a baby. What kind of choice is that? Murdering babies should be illegal. Duh. Of course, people don't usually like being called baby murderers, so your friends probably didn't respond in the greatest way. I imagine the conversation went something like, you accuse them of being okay with murdering babies, and they accuse you of wanting to control women's bodies. If that sounds familiar, then buckle up, because I've got 8 things to point out that'll help your discussions with pro-choicers be a little more productive. Now, it's not my intention to convince you to be pro-choice. All I want to do is explain the pro-choice position and what it does and doesn't involve. Here are 8 things that pro-lifers need to understand about pro-choicers. First and foremost, most pro-choicers are not in favor of abortion up until the moment of birth. That is still a relatively uncommon view. I see a lot of talk in the media about the potential for abortion up until the moment of birth, but we shouldn't assume that this is what your pro-choice friend believes, because in all likelihood, they probably don't. Number 2, no one appreciates being called a baby murderer. Even if you think that being pro-choice is basically being pro-infanticide, framing the discussion in that light is only going to hurt things. It's much, much better to explain why you think abortion involves killing a baby, rather than just assuming it does and then calling pro-choicers pro-infanticiders. Number 3, it's a bit misleading to call pro-choicers pro-abortion. It's more accurate to say that they are pro-abortion rights. They aren't out there saying, abortion's a great thing, we want as many abortions as possible. No, instead, what they're saying is, we want as much abortion accessibility as possible. That is, they want it to be easier for people who need an abortion to be able to get an abortion. Now, this is where you, the pro-lifer, can step in and say, okay, what do you mean by needing an abortion? Are you just talking about, say, rape and extreme medical conditions? Or are you just talking about a woman who has unprotected consensual sex and then just doesn't want to go through with the pregnancy? What do you actually mean by needing an abortion? Number 4, this really isn't a secret, but it's good to point out. Virtually all pro-choicers reject the idea that life begins at conception. Many people see this view as just ridiculous, and even some pro-lifers reject it. That's why the vast majority of pro-choicers don't believe that abortion does inherently involve murder. A sperm doesn't magically become a person the moment it touches an egg, just as a seed doesn't automatically become a plant the moment you put it in the soil. Taking the seed from out of the soil to stop it from growing is not the same thing as killing a plant. And the same is true with a lot of fetuses. Pro-choicers and even some pro-lifers believe that at least up until some point, the fetus is not a person. This is where you, the pro-lifer, can challenge them a bit. How do they draw the line between a fetus that's a person and a fetus that's not a person? This is the response that Ben Shapiro gives a lot. Number 5 is that oftentimes not seeing the fetus as a person with full human rights is the very reason pro-lifers think you're threatening the bodily autonomy of women. The fetus is not an additional person. It's living, yes, but so are my organs. That's not the relevant point. The point is, it's alive, it's not a separate person, it's biologically attached to the woman, and it has direct health effects on the woman. This sounds more like a body part, or I hate to say it, a parasite, than it does a person with full human rights. Number 6, we absolutely cannot forget the role of religion in this whole discussion. I'm willing to bet that most pro-lifers believe life begins at conception. And they probably believe this because of deeply held religious beliefs. The Judeo-Christian imagery of God literally knitting you together in your mother's womb is powerful imagery. The idea is that something absolutely amazing, sacred, and miraculous even is taking place. The majority of pro-choicers likely don't see bearing a child as such a sacred thing. If you think there are souls of aborted first trimester fetuses up in heaven, your difference might have more to do with your religious views than your views on abortion specifically. Number 7, many times pro-choicers have analogies and comparisons that you've never even thought of that make some abortions seem acceptable, even if the fetus is a separate person. Please don't just shrug off these comparisons. A lot of them actually make really good and really interesting points. So just give it a shot. Hear them through. The 8th and final point is definitely the most substantive. It's nice of you, the pro-lifer, to admit that even in cases of rape or extreme health conditions, you would still be in favor of some kind of abortion rights. The problem that pro-lifers often miss is, how could you legally enforce this? How could you have a law that says, okay, if you're raped or you are gonna die, yes, you can get an abortion. Otherwise, you can't. Now, the extreme health complications, that should be easy enough to prove through medical records and testing if required, even though it still is going to take a little bit of time. But when it comes to the case of rape, we basically have one of two options. On the one hand, the law could be that you go to your doctor's office, you say, I was raped, I want an abortion, and they say, okay. In that case, it wouldn't be a very good law, would it? Anybody could just go in and say, hello, yes, I was raped, I want an abortion. So having a law that lenient, it might as well not have a law. On the other hand, the law could be that you come in, say, I was raped, I want an abortion, to which the doctor would say, do you have proof? Is there a police report? Was anyone convicted or even accused of raping you? All of these things would need to be in place, but that means before you can get an abortion, you need to go through all of these processes. Even if you don't need the rapist to be convicted in court, you still need to have a police investigation, get a lawyer, go to court, and all of that takes time. When you look up the amount of time this normally takes, you find that on average, it takes about 4 to 6 months. So, assuming a woman finds out they're pregnant about a month after they become pregnant, which is pretty standard, that means at minimum, you would have to wait around 5 months before you could even think about getting the abortion. Most likely, the woman would already be in the 3rd trimester. And at that point, even a lot of pro-choicers are hesitant about abortions. The point is, the conversation has to move past just saying, well, I support it in cases of rape and extreme medical conditions. That might be true, but it's too simple to be of any use. And with that, we come to the end of the video. Again, if you liked the video, remember to click the like button and subscribe if you want to keep up with my newest videos. If you really feel like supporting the channel, you can donate through PayPal, or you can go get some perks on Patreon. In the next video, I'll be looking at the pro-life position and examining some things pro-choicers really need to understand about the real pro-life position. So, bye for now, and I hope to see you in another video.